Hello, everyone. Anthony Knockreiner, John Kemper, your host for another episode of The Tootie, where we dive into Class AA football headlines, the matchups, and we give you something that you can't get anywhere else, and that's exclusive Class AA high school football coverage. John, great to be with you once again as we have a lot to discuss tonight.
Yeah, definitely. We've got to dive into some stuff. We got some movement with some of the counties and what they're saying for fans. We're going to look at our western side today of the games we're most looking forward to this season for the Western AA. And and I got to, one thing I got to say, I don't think a lot of people necessarily know us. I mean, they know us, let's say at Helena or Flathead or in those areas, but I thought it might be fun we can ask each other one question per show and we can answer that question and then dive in. So you want to do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to ask you an easy one. You brag, you're from Florida. You're a Florida man, like light, right? But you always talk about these subs from someplace down there that are really good. So I want you to tell us why these subs from where are so good and why.
All right, so you're talking about one of my all-time favorite foods. All right, I'm talking about Publix, the grocery chain. All right, Publix is more or less a southeastern grocery chain, kind of like what you see here in Montana with Smith's, Super Ones. They're exclusive to the southeast, and in particular, they started in Florida. Publix fried chicken was a mainstay when I was growing up. I mean, their fried chicken was awesome. It was better than Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's how good Publix fried chicken was.
That's not hard, though. That's not hard to beat.
Okay, but again, I'm just saying they had really, really good fried chicken. Okay, the breading was fantastic. The way they made it was fantastic. As a kid, I loved it. You talk to anybody from Florida about Publix fried chicken, I will be shocked if you don't get similar sentiments. So Publix then decided to turn their deli into also a sandwich making operation. And they added chicken tenders, and using their same recipe for fried chicken, just doing it for chicken tenders, and you put it on a sub. I do it with American cheese, tomatoes, onions, jalapenos, yellow peppers, and oil and vinegar. And I throw it on there, and especially because the chicken is hot, all of that stuff kind of melts together. And I usually do it on Italian bread or 9-grain bread as well. It just is absolutely tasty. I love it, and that's why it's one of my all-time favorite foods. So yeah, you can't go wrong with a Publix chicken tender sub. If you're ever in the Southeast, Tennessee, I think there might be in Arkansas. I'm not completely sure on that. I do believe they're in Mississippi, but I know this for a fact. Tennessee, Georgia, the Carolinas, as well as Florida, you can't go wrong with a Publix chicken tender sub.
I don't think we're going to have a lot of people like making destinations to Arkansas.
I'm just saying, I say the Southeast, and the Southeast includes Arkansas usually.
Usually, yeah. Okay. Well, I did have one of those sandwiches when I was in North Carolina, and it was good. I thought it was very good, actually. I could see definitely better than Subway, so I'll give you that.
My one question for you is this. Considering the fact you grew up in the or around the Spokane area, how did you become a Dodgers fan?
Well, I mean, some things, Anthony, transcend, geographical locations, and being a Dodger fan is it's kind of like, being the best thing in the world. So it just happened. So no,
earliest Dodger memory.
I was actually born in LA, and then we moved to Spokane. So my earliest Dodger memory, my earliest Dodger memory would be like them winning the '81 World Series. Like I remember that. I would have been 5, almost 6, when they won that. But my very first memory of going to Dodger Stadium was in '83 and watching the Dodgers play the Pirates, and it was Fernando Valenzuela on the mound, and the Dodgers won 10-3. And I got a Steve Sax shirtsy at the time, but it was kind of cool because we were on the reserve level, and we were leaving the game, and you could order a shirt at the little gift shop area that they had, and they actually would press the name and number on at that time right then, which I never knew even existed. So yeah, I walked out with a 3/4 sleeve Steve Sax jersey number 3 shirtsy on that. So that's my earliest memory. of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm
All
just
right.
filled with Dodger memories.
I'm sure we don't have time for all of them right now,
No,
but I
they're
hope
talking.
we get at least one.
There you go. Yep, I'm a Dodger fan. That's how it happened, and you like sandwiches from Publix. So, all right. So now people know a little bit more about us. So why don't we dive in here and talk about what they came here for, and that's Montana AA football.
Absolutely. So last time, our last episode, we talked about our most intriguing games for each Eastern Conference team. John and I have broken down the Western Conference, our most intriguing games for Western Conference teams, and we have broken down one game for each team, the 8 teams in the Western Conference. For me, I have picked games for Flathead, Glacier, Sentinel, and Hellgate. John, which teams are you picking for?
Helena, Capital, Big Sky, and Butte.
All right, so John, I will defer to you. You pick the first team that you find their game most intriguing in the Western Conference.
I'm going to start with Helena. No homerism there. It just worked out that way. So, again, this is games we're looking forward to, not necessarily rivalry games. The rivalry games actually on the East and West are great, but we were trying to find ones that maybe weren't that. So, Helena, I think the game of the year for Helena is going to be against Sentinel.
Yeah.
Two teams that are going to be contending, I think, for the top of the AA, especially in the West. And it's going to be a battle. Last year, Sentinel beat Helena. And this year, Sentinel's loaded up. Helena has another year of experience. They have a very experienced, a more experienced quarterback. And they bring back a lot of talent that they had last year on that. So I'm really looking forward to watching Helena and Sentinel play here, middle of the season.
I was going to say one of the other intriguing matchups within that game I have to imagine for you also is just the fact that, once again, Scott Evans, Dane Oliver, again, 2 coaches very respected on the sides of the ball they coach. Obviously, Scott Evans, really one of the best offensive minds in the Western Conference. Dane Oliver does a great job on the offense, has created a lot of exciting offenses, some barn-burning offenses the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you have two coaches that are on opposite sides of the ball going right at it, and they both come up with some really good schemes, and it's just a lot of fun to watch for sure. And I'm just really looking forward to it for sure. I'm glad that's when I'll be at to call.
Very true. Very true. One of the games for me, we'll start with Flathead, obviously, just with the Flathead Braves this season. One of the most intriguing games for me is actually against Helena. Last season, Flathead went into Helena and grabbed their first win this season against the Helena High Bengals, which was a big win for them, big confidence booster, obviously for first-year head coach Matt Upham. And one of the reasons why I'm intrigued by this game is simply because, and it's not because it's the two of us, obviously, it's always great to see you in person, John. But the interesting thing about this game, no home team has won this game in the regular season since 2015. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can. It's wild to watch. I mean, last year at Helena, I don't know if Helena could have played a worse game than in that. And Flathead played a very good game to get that win. But yeah, that's going to be a fun one to be up there in Flathead, to be able to watch those two go at it at Legends.
Yeah, and I think the other key for me as well is defense dominate. Obviously, Matt Upham is defensive coordinator for the Braves and has been since he was brought to Flathead, and he does a great job on the defensive end. Obviously, played for Coach Evans when he was at Helena High. And so, teacher, pupil, those matchups are just always fun. And so I think that's an added intrigue to this matchup, as Helena will be coming up to Flathead in early October, and should be another exciting matchup. For you, John, what's your next game?
Are you trying to bring like Star Wars into that? Is that Obi-Wan and Anakin? What?
Hey, I mean, Star Wars, I mean, all kinds of the classics,
What's another classic that does that?
That's the reason why I said classics, John. I couldn't think of anybody else.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm not going to help you out. My next one is Capital, and I actually have Capital and Butte. I think two programs they were very successful last year. Obviously, Butte, we're going to talk more about them going all the way to the state championship, having an undefeated regular season, and Capital also having a very good season. But both teams have lost a lot from last year to this year, and I'm excited to watch that game and see those two battle it out, and to just see which team, what they have talent-wise on the field for the varsity level as those two teams get ready. And it's always one of those fun games to go to when it's Butte versus Capital. I went to the one 2 years ago, actually, here at Vigilante, and it was a blast. It was a barn burner of a game. A lot of fun to watch. So, I mean, that's going to be a great one as they just travel up and down I-15 to take on each other.
Well, I think the interesting thing about that game too has to be the fact that you look at the quarterback position. Again, another matchup where obviously we just don't know who's going to be the starting quarterbacks for either one of these guys. I think the leading contender right now that I know for Butte's Dracos. But again, it'll be interesting for both teams as they're going to have to solve that riddle that is the quarterback position.
Yep, absolutely. What do you got?
I got Glacier. So Glacier, the most interesting game, and I think this is a very obvious one, is their game against Sentinel. These two are rivals. I know obviously Flathead and Glacier are rivals, clearly crosstown, but Glacier's a rival with Sentinel. They have played some really exciting games the last several seasons. I go back to, I think, my first year here where they played like a 72-68 or 69 ball game. It was a high-scoring affair. It was more like a basketball score than it was a football score. So for me, Glacier and Sentinel, a fireworks show right there. You look at it, JT Allen is going to be coming back for Glacier. He was the leading passer of the quarterbacks that are coming back. He's got Jake Rendina with him, again, a promising young back that's, I think, going to take even bigger steps this season. You got Luke Belau, a guy that's a tight end, can line up in the slot as a receiver. I think those defenses are going to be they're going to be in for a long day, I think, for both teams. When you look at Sentinel as well, Jace Klusewicz, all of those teams, I think Glacier Sentinel. I'll tell you this much: I think if you're looking at the over/under, definitely take the over in this ball game.
Something I realized: you name drop more than someone trying to become a hedge fund manager. You name drop all over the place. It's awe-inspiring. So.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, hey, listen, when people come to the Two Deep, they need to know that both of us are well-versed in the classification that is AA football. We know the names. We know the people. Me and you, we got connections.
I feel like you're talking down to me, but we'll just move along on that one. Okay, I got Big Sky. And I picked Big Sky and Flathead because these are two teams that really struggled last year, didn't have very good records. And I'm curious how those two are going to play against each other. And part of it is I think there's going to be some playoff positioning that's going to take place in games like that. Those are games I think Big Sky and Flathead both look at each other and say, we need to win this game for sure, because they're going to need to win games they feel they can win. So when they play, the teams in the upper echelon, that they're going to really struggle against, like a Sentinel, let's say, they need to have these type of wins under their belt so they can help solidify where they're going to be when playoffs roll around, and however playoffs is going to look. So.
And that game's going to be at the end of the season, so I completely agree. I think there's going to be some playoff positioning that's going to be on the line for both of those teams when we get to that game at the end of the year. Hopefully we'll get to the end of the year as well.
So what else you got?
So I got Sentinel here as well, and so Sentinel, for me, their matchup, I could say Glacier once again, but now Sentinel versus Butte. This is one of the best games of the season last year, 39-36. Butte kicks a field goal to win it as time expires, and so I think this matchup's going to be really interesting. Again, I'm sure Sentinel's looking for a little revenge because Butte beat them on their field last year. This game will be in Butte, so I think Sentinel probably wants a little more payback this year as well, and I think Sentinel's going to be the favored team in this one. I think we're going to be talking about Sentinel similarly the way we've talked about Butte last year, just because of all the talent they have. Again, you got Camden Sark, Dayton Bay. Who's going to win the quarterback battle between those two guys? Jace Klusewicz is one of the fastest individuals in Class AA football. He might be one of the fastest guys in all of the state of Montana in football. So, again, just an absolute weapon for Sentinel. You look at TJ Roush as well. We've already seen the guy can definitely handle the 10-toe challenge on the sideline and in the end zone. And so got great feet. You also look at a guy like Geno Leonard. I think he's going to be pivotal in this matchup for Sentinel because he's going to be following the mobile quarterbacks that Butte's going to have along with their running game as well. So for me, Sentinel, this just looks like it's going to be another barn burner. I think Butte and Sentinel have great offenses. I would expect the same. I think it's going to be another close matchup here. But Sentinel Butte, that's going to be another fun one in the Western Conference. And I think that's going to really kind of tell us, okay, where Butte's at as well. Where's Butte going to be in terms of the playoff picture within the Western Conference?
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of the 10-toe challenge, your coach from high school said you were really good at the 3-toe challenge, but it was the 3-toe sloth challenge.
Once again, jokes, John Kemper, jokes. I mean, listen, yes, I am slow. I was never built for speed. I was built for power.
Well, we'll jump into Butte. If you need a break and take a drink, by all means, anyone. Have some water. Okay, I got Butte, and I'm going with Butte and Helena because last year Helena was in Butte. They played week 3, and it was actually a very good game to watch. And the score, it wasn't as close as – the game was closer than what the score really showed. But in that game, it was Moreno just ran all over Helena High. I think he went over 200 yards against Helena in that one. But Helena, they kept it close. So, again, these type of games when you're, Butte and Helena, old rivalries, teams that have been around since, the 1890s and even before on that. So they have a lot of history, and they're just 65 miles apart. And I just really, really am excited to be able to see that one as well, to watch Butte here in Helena. Also, that's the very first game of the season for Helena in Butte on September 11th. So both teams, man, all the teams in the AA are going to be ready to hit somebody else that isn't in the same uniform color as what they've been, as their other team, or as their, I'm sorry, the other players on their team. They want to hit somebody else. And telling you, man, both sides are going to be ready to go on September 11th for that one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very interesting matchup, as you kind of talked about there. Again, Helena, Butte, 2 really good teams from last season. Again, I think it's a great barometer. It's really going to tell us, okay, where's Helena at? Where's Butte at in terms of what that game is going to provide? And with that, John, because that's an opening game, as you just talked about. My last game, Hellgate Big Sky, that's an opening season game as well. A crosstown matchup in Missoula between Hellgate and Big Sky. I think for Big Sky, obviously, Coulter Janicaro. Got to keep him healthy. He's a big dynamic factor for Big Sky's offense. Again, doesn't quite have the size of his older brother, but again, I think Coulter, you can make the case and say Coulter's his own player at this point. I'm really excited at what he does. Again, he's very similar to his brother Levi because he is just one tough son of a gun to bring down a football field. And so you're going to need all your guys to make sure you've got Coulter Janicaro wrapped up. And he's going to be really exciting. I think along with it, I think Matt Johnson, from what I'm hearing out of Big Sky there, there's got some exciting things. They got some ball players this year. They got the numbers coming onto their side as well. So I think they're pretty excited. Hellgate, I think the interesting part for me with Hellgate is, again, okay, we've seen it. We've seen, okay, they didn't play varsity football a couple of years ago. Now, last season, they had great success, found themselves in the middle of the pack in the Western Conference. Can they continue to take that next step now? They have to find a new quarterback instead of Raleigh Wooster, who's now over at Utah State. They've got some great weapons. I look at Ian Finch, one of the top receivers last season. I look at Jacob Swetlin, another good running back, good size by him. So I think that Hellgate's got some playmakers. And I think for both of these teams, I know you did Big Sky, but I also want to say with Hellgate in this game, I think it's also going to give us another barometer of where these two teams are at. Is Hellgate going to take another step? Where is their program at? Where's Big Sky at? I think that's going to be a really interesting matchup. So Hellgate Big Sky is the last game for me. And something I want to ask you, John, on the tail end of this here as we get ready to talk about county guidelines. I want to get your thoughts because obviously we have some very interesting matchups to open up the season. And obviously we see non-conference that kind of gives us a gauge of, all right, how are these teams going to look in conference? Well, I think the opening week's kind of a wild card. So how much do you think that the opening week will really tell us about these football teams, considering the fact we don't have those non-conference and when they've had 3-4 weeks to practice?
Well, I think one thing we're going to have, while they've practiced a lot and they've gone through, a lot of their drills and they'll have a scrimmage under their belt, I think we're going to see a lot of rust. And I think that goes back to just, the summer. You had workout programs and you did that, but this was such a different year where, you have a lot of football players that also participate in track. Well, that didn't happen. So, some kids you really had to see, you're going to really see what kids really put in the work during the off season and which ones didn't, and kind of waited until, football season kind of started. So I think this first week you're going to see, some rust. I think you're going to probably see on some teams just not necessarily figuring it out, but maybe some vanilla to start out. Very simple defenses, maybe a little simpler offenses. I think teams that maybe run the ball better than pass the ball might have some success early, just because that's a little easier scheme maybe to learn than and then also you have quarterbacks that are needing to get their reps in on passes and in game situations, and typically they have 2 weeks to do that in the non-conference league and non-conference schedule, and now they don't have that. So I think the first couple weeks will probably be a little sloppy, and then it'll get ship shape, and it'll look a lot better. The teams that do that the least are going to be the ones that have the biggest advantage when the season comes to a close just 7 weeks later, if we get there. But the perception or the hope is that we get there. So if we get there into the playoffs, I think you're going to be able to look back at week 1 and week 2 and really see the teams that are doing well in the playoffs also started better than everybody else.
Fair enough. Like I said, it's going to be really interesting. I think the storylines are going to be really interesting, especially going into week 1, obviously, and we'll break those down here on the 2 Deep and after week 1 and week 2. So I think, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. Again, hopefully we get this full season in. A lot to talk about, and both John and I are pretty excited to actually talk about some action and talk about football once we get to that point, because obviously the last couple of episodes, and we'll just go ahead and dive right into this, John, county guidelines have been the story, and, well, you know what? Why not continue that trend?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Let's get into a topic that isn't really heated. It's
not at all.
Nobody really has strong opinions one way or the other. It's been very, very peaceful.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the very first thing on this, and people I think are just missing it, is this is not a governor thing. This is not an MHSA thing. This is a county thing. And I've heard people say, the governor needs to step in and he just needs to make a blanket ruling across the whole state. I mean, he could do that, right? But if you look at how Governor Bullock has handled the COVID crisis all the way back from when it began until now, for the most part, he has allowed county health departments to really put guidelines in place and really do what they feel is best for the county. So that's what you're running into. So people that are, mad at the governor or mad at the MHSA, I get it. There's frustration there, but really it comes down to health departments. And you're seeing that in this as we go through this. We have health departments that are allowing 2 players. We have some allowing fans. We have some allowing 3 fans. And we have some, like in Helena, none. So it's, man, I just want to say I feel horrible for the parents and the fans in general, but I feel horrible for the parents. I feel horrible for those seniors and those players that have had their parents at every game since they were in small fry all the way up, and now in their senior year or their junior year, their parents are not going to be able to be there in it looks like half of the schools right now. So it's man, I tell you.
I think for me, and along similar lines, like I said, I think from the outset, my point has been, listen, okay, if you're going to not allow fans, I don't exactly like that idea. I think there can be a compromise. I think that at least for home teams, the senior parents should be allowed to attend the games. And that's my highest priority, our senior parents. Because, again, I understand juniors. I understand sophomores that are in varsity. But those parents still hopefully we'll be back to normal by this time next year. And so hopefully we'll be back to full stadiums and all these types of things. You're not going to worry about this stuff anymore. It won't go away, but obviously, it won't be as prevalent in the front of our minds. So I think the senior parents are the ones that I'm most concerned about. And I want them to be able to go to games. Again, I get it. I understand that there's some there's inconsistency with what they're doing. And I understand for Yellowstone County, I think they have a legit gripe with not allowing fans when you just had the Legion State tournament just a couple of weeks ago, right there. And I think they have a legit gripe there.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to allow fans, then why did you allow the state tournament? But
Yep.
again, at the end of the day, I'm kind of with you. I just don't see, you're not going to get a one blanket ruling, because guess what? You can't get these health departments to agree. If one person holds out, well, then you can't have a one blanket rule if one person holds out. So try and listen. When I've talked to several coaches, ads, they did say, "Hey, do we try?" But it just wasn't able to get worked out. So then, if you can't work that out, then you take care of your immediate area and what you can do. Again, understand this. We're not saying that we don't want parents there. We're not saying that let's just play and it doesn't matter if the parents are there. No, we want parents there. We want the kids to be able to have their parents there and be able to see them play. And when they make a great play, be able to look up in the stands and see mom and dad. But at the same time, we know this was going to take an alternate course. And I think we're going to have to try and work this out the best we can.
Here's some parents that are overlooked in all of this, freshmen and JV, because now in some of the schools or some of the fields, they do play JV on the actual varsity field. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and what I'm talking about is actually being able to get the feed to watch it on an FHS. But when it comes to like freshmen and it comes to places like Helena, you will only be able to watch varsity football on that network. Parents in Helena, at least, and I'm assuming this across the state, if you're not allowed to watch games, is those parents aren't going to be able to watch their freshman kids play or their sophomore kids play or their JVs play. Now, are you hearing something different? Because that's what's coming down.
Well, I will say this from at least how I understand it with Flathead County, because I believe the way they're going to do it is that, okay, the JV, like I think what they're going to do is JV play JV. Now, again, I won't say this is for sure, but I will say this. I think what's going to end up happening is if there's a freshman game, they're going to allow the freshman parents to come and watch, to participant, all that stuff. I think that's going to be allowed, but because freshman games don't get played the same night as varsity anyway. Yeah. So I do believe they will be, at least in Flathead County, will be allowed.
Yeah, I guess I should clarify. I'm talking about the counties that aren't allowing parents.
Right. So Yellowstone and Lewis.
The problem that we're running into, and it'll be in Helena and it'll be in Belgrade too. Now, Belgrade may not have an issue with it, but we don't have a turf field here. We have grass. So the concern, I think, is, hey, we can play freshman games at Vigilante, but you're doubling or tripling the wear on that field, because you're going to have varsity, JV, and freshmen playing on the same field, and it's going to get tore up really fast. Now, maybe that's no big deal and you just do it for the sake of being able to have video. But as of right now, I'm not hearing that that's going to be the case. So, yes, you are right, though. Any place that is allowing fans for varsity, yeah, you're going to get 2 fans. You're going to get 2 fans per kid is my understanding on it, too. But I think, we talk about the seniors and the senior parents, and rightfully so. But some of these parents, I mean, they're freshman kids and they're sophomores. They're not going to get to see them play either. And the only benefit that they have to that is they will at least get to see them play, next season and the season after.
I think one thing that can be curbed by this, and I don't know if this is going to be within the capacity, hopefully it will be in some sort of fashion, but I think, and this is just an idea for the head coaches out there, perhaps then you at least get a video, even if it's recorded, but just get someone out there, recording the game as best as possible, load the game up on YouTube or whatever, and allow the parents to watch that way. I think that would be a great alternative. So that way the freshman parents maybe are able to watch, because obviously, as we know, the NFHS is going to do their thing, but like you said, there's no guarantee that these freshman games are going to be played at these stadiums all the time. And so at the very least, one camera, from the side, see if you can get someone to film it for you. Yep. And upload it. And there's a way to do it. I think that we're going to get creative.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's what I'm hearing on that. I mean, we won't get into it on the show, but parents are creative, people are creative, and there are already some very creative ideas out there. And again, I'm not going to talk about it, but go
I,
any
I,
that.
I
But
will say, I saw one Belgrade picture. It was a Belgrade fan. They apparently, I don't know how he did it, but he put seats, like, I don't know if they were actually stadium seats, but it looked like a stadium bleacher on top of his truck. And so
yep.
that was interesting.
Yeah.
They got creative.
I mean, all I think of when I was thinking of this last night, I was like, man, this is going to be like Wrigley Field. Like, I mean, if there's any houses across the street, you just don't know. I mean, yeah. So it's crazy. But I think we need to bring it back a little bit. We need to talk about these counties and which ones are allowing fans and which ones aren't. So the two right now, first of all, Missoula, as of right now, as we're recording this, Missoula hasn't made a decision. We're hearing a lot of rumblings about Missoula, but they haven't made a decision.
Oh, lots of rumors.
Yeah. But as far as schools or counties, rather, not allowing fans right now, you have two counties. You have Lewis and Clark County, so Helena and Capital, and then you have Yellowstone County, which is Skyview, West, and Senior. That's what they have. That's what we have right now as far as teams or health departments not allowing fans at games.
Yes. Now we have 4 counties now that are allowing fans. That would be Gallatin County now, Flathead County, Cascade County, and Silverbow County. Obviously, the Great Falls schools, Butte schools, Bozeman schools, Belgrade, I think is included in that. The Flathead and Glaciers also. So they'll be allowed to have fans. So we did Gallatin to make that decision. So right now, Missoula is the only one holding out. But it was kind of interesting, as something that you pointed out a little bit earlier off air, was the fact that, what was Gallatin going to do? Because Gallatin really could make the split between the AA teams of 8 and 8 potentially, depending on where Missoula goes with fans. Again, I don't know for sure, but I'm kind of leaning towards, if they do play games in Missoula, just as stringent as they've been, I don't think we're going to see fans in Missoula. That's, again, my opinion. I don't know for sure, but that's my opinion.
My opinion on Missoula is the best case scenario for Missoula is that they play without fans in Missoula.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario, I think, because I think other scenarios they are on the road the whole season.
Yeah, there is that possibility. Like I said, it would be, again, I just don't know what's going to happen with Missoula until they announce something, because I've just heard so many ranging things on what Missoula is going to do. And I think they've got to make a decision sooner or later, because obviously I know it's not AA football, but Frenchtown's playing a game.
Yep.
And
Sealy's playing a game.
Yeah. So they need to, so like I said, it's really going to be interesting to see what Missoula decides to do. Let me ask you this. Were you surprised by Gallatin's decision?
No, that one didn't surprise me. I expected that one. Some of these, honestly, the one I'm more surprised with, we talked about, is Yellowstone County. Honestly, they just hosted, like we talked about, the Legion state tournament, and then they do this. And, some of this is broken down, it feels, on some political lines, and I don't want to get into that, but you can kind of look at it and think, like, you can kind of make some assumptions. And Yellowstone was the one that really threw me for a loop. Gallatin didn't really throw me for a loop very much. Kalispell didn't. Helena, Lewis and Clark didn't really throw me for a loop. Missoula, I mean, I think we should just talk about the basic 3 options that Missoula is looking at. And I mean, these are the assumptions that we have, but I see 3 options that they have. One, they don't even allow their teams to play. They don't allow them to travel, and they don't play. 2, they play, but they're on the road. So they're playing their home games somewhere else, whether that's in Hamilton, whether that's in Helena, whether that's in Butte, whether that's in Kalispell, Polson, wherever. Or 3, they play at Missoula County Public School Stadium, but no fans. I think those are the only 3 options that you see right now, that I see right now with Missoula.
Do you think, again, this is just a curiosity here, because obviously you talk about Missoula County Public Stadium, again, not nearly as big as Washington Grizzly, but do you see Washington Grizzly even maybe try to become an option? Because, again, it can seat a lot more people, so you can spread out a lot more people in that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great, but I just don't see it happening. I
Okay.
don't. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great option. I think it's a great option that Bozeman could do that at MSU too, with their 3 schools. I just don't see them doing that. I just see they're either going to play at their home stadium, over by Big Sky, or they're going to hit the road. And I mean, right now, I've already said it. I think the best case scenario for them is that they play at home without fans. And
I mean, again, yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the best case scenario, at least from all the rumblings and the things that I've been hearing. I think that is the best case scenario for Missoula. Because again, I would just be very surprised because, and it's not like our assumptions are, just because Missoula, we think Missoula is just going to do this. Missoula's been showing they have been the stricter county from the outset.
yep,
You look at Legion Baseball earlier in the summer, and some other things where they were taking that 50 number very literally.
yeah. They were shutting
in,
down restaurants, bars, all sorts.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're taking it very serious. So
That's there again. There's the reason and some understanding that why we think this may be the best case scenario for Missoula. Not because you don't like Missoula or anything like that. It's just
no,
the things that have been done previously have led us to believe this may be the situation.
yeah, that's where I see it. And my belief is with Helena and Billings, and if Missoula does allow games to happen without fans in their county, I don't think you see fans the entire season in those places. I don't think you see.
Really? Yeah, that's interesting. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping that as we move along, maybe we get to a better place. But again, we got to see the numbers go down,
Yeah.
and we're going to have to see if the
Well,
numbers.
that's a tough thing because if you're following the COVID cases daily and the numbers that are being reported, you see numbers reported, and then you immediately start reading about less tests. There hasn't been as many tests. So there's, people correlate that together, that if there's less tests, obviously there's less positive cases. I know we don't want to get off in that tangent, but I don't see fans being allowed in. And I think, I mean, this is a slippery slope to talk about and to walk down, Anthony, but I mean, what do parents do? I mean, what could you see? I mean, I'm sitting through, we're sitting almost 3 weeks away from the start of the season, and I'm having this picture in my head of what it's going to look like around Vigilante Stadium before the start of their first game between Helena and Butte. And I can only imagine, a lot of parents surrounding the outside of that stadium. And I think that's going to be a case everywhere that's not allowing fans.
Well, I think at Legend Stadium it's tough to do because where Legend Stadium's at, there's some county buildings that are in front of the stadium itself. There's some houses that are there as well. The stadium's not exactly easy to see from. Like you'd have to get.
Yeah, you guys are a little buffered, I guess. If you've never been to Vigilante, it is just literally on 3 sides, or mainly 2 sides. It is just city sidewalk and a fence and some bushes. So you can get right there. So I'm just,
No, I mean, I think you make an interesting point because I think parents they're resourceful. They're going to find a way to do something. And it may be, again, like I told you about a Belgrade parent creating some chairs on top of his car or, something of that sort. I think you're right. I think we could see something that creatively in places where we are not allowing fans.
And then one other issue that Ken Iden brought up on Twitter was about NFHS, the website crashing a lot and also having game times wrong. So that's stuff that can't happen. I mean, you're telling these parents, hey, you can watch it and you can listen to it. But if you have a system that's crashing or glitching, and let's be honest, it's not like you're watching Monday Night Football. I mean, you're watching it from a very far distance. You can make out numbers, you can see the ball some, but if your connection's poor, or if the connection's poor at the stadium, it pixelates, it jumps, it freezes. There's a lot of issues there. And you're just telling parents that's how they have to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, I think Ken definitely brought up a point. And I would say that the NFHS has to know that they got to step up their game. Like they cannot have connection problems. They cannot have issues.
Knowing and doing are two separate things. Because
But I think the other thing is I think that each school has somebody running it. I don't think it's necessarily like all these things are being filtered into a hub somewhere in NFHS headquarters. So I think it's going to have to be, I think it's going to have to be ADs dedicating someone to especially running, making sure game times are done right, things of those type of nature. I think, again, I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure the schools are, I think, in a little bit of control. I'm not entirely
we
sure.
should get clarification on that, because the assumption and what I thought and what I had heard
I could be wrong here.
all season was that there's actually tracking software with the cameras that track the play on the court or on the field, and that it does go to a central hub.
Oh. Then
correct me if I'm wrong. I've never seen anyone at any game I've been at, whether it's football, basketball, or volleyball, I've never seen someone dealing with the cameras or have a control pad or anything. The only times I ever saw that was when you would go to Bozeman pre-NFHS days. You go to Bozeman or you go up to Flathead or Kalispell, and you had the TV crew that would come in and they would film the games and they would have their stuff. That's the only time I've seen that.
I think, yeah, you're right. I think you're right on that. I'm mistaken.
No, and I could be wrong. I'm just, but the bigger point is this. The bigger point is this. Man, desperate times call for desperate measures. I think you need to allow, if you're not going to allow fans in, you need to allow schools to throw it on their YouTube page, to bring in some cameras and allow them to film. And actually film close. The benefit right now, since you're going to have empty stadiums, is you can put those cameras wherever you want, and you can get them nice and close.
Yeah, but those cameras are scary.
But they're better than what you have with NFHS, in my opinion. So and that's the deal. Is the other part of that is it's free. You're not having to spend money on a monthly. Now, granted, $10 or whatever, it's not a lot of money, but still. You almost feel like you're being held hostage as a parent. It's like, oh, yeah, you can't watch your kid play, but you can pay for this subscription and then you can watch them.
Well, I think the NFHS needs to come up with something. They don't need to be charging their normal rates in this kind of situation here.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think they do. I think they're like, hey, it's $10. It's a deal.
But I can't remember. Is it $10 a game?
No, it's $10 a month. So it's not awful. But, I mean, think of this. I mean, think of it from a marketing strategy. If you're the NFHS, you're charging $10 a month. You have ads that you put in, and I guarantee you they didn't lower the cost of the ads, especially in this situation, because they know they're going to have more viewers. If anything, they're raising the rates on their ads because they're like, hey, you're going to have more viewers, so now it's $50 instead of this. So, I mean, it's just, again, I don't mean to get in the weeds, but I'm just –
no, I hear you.
I get where the parents are coming from. I'm frustrated with it. I think parents need to be allowed into the stands, at least two. I think seniors first, and then you go from there. You look at the double standards that you have all over the state. Where what did you guys have in Kalispell last weekend?
We had the fair,
and you had the rodeo. You had packed out stands. And I'm not getting down on Kalispell. That's fine. But you have that, but then you drive 200 miles and you're like, nah, can't have any of it. So it's just, that's the frustration that's there. And I get the idea of like, man, if you could just throw a blanket policy out and say, Governor Bullock could say, hey, this is what we're doing. That's great. But there has been no demonstration that the governor has been willing to do that. And like it or not, he's put the power into the county health department to make those rules.
Yeah, I would say I don't see a change coming from the governor where he's going to take that power out of their hands.
No,
I think what we would have to do is we would have to get out of what is the COVID situation. Once we get to that or get to phase 3, then I think we get back to some of the normal things here, because again, I understand, we've gotten some questions from our email.
Yes.
About, does it seem the MHSA does not consider the 50-person limit to be everybody on both sidelines plus the officials? Um, I think the MHSA. I don't think the MHSA thought of it that way. I don't think anybody really thought of it.
No,
Like,
you're given an exemption. That is something Bullock has done. He's given an exemption for that you can allow that. The trick that I think they're running into in places like Helena and Yellowstone is while they're allowing that, it almost feels like they have to make the choice of you can allow that exemption, but you can't have anyone in the stands, or you can have people in the stands, but you're only limited to 50 people in the entire place. So your hands are tied. You have to go with obviously having the players and refs and coaches on the field to be able to do it. So that's why I think that's one reason why fans aren't allowed into the stadium, is for that reason. My question is in week one, and I'm sorry to go back to Helena, this is going to happen in Yellowstone County too, especially at Wendy's Field at Dallas Stadium, because it is literally chain link around the entire thing. You're going to have parents and fans stand right against the chain link fence. Do you think they're going to give 6 inches or 6 feet of their space? Nah, they're not gonna. They're gonna get as packed in as they possibly can, and they're gonna try to watch the game outside the stadium. So what do you do then? Do you have the police there? Do you say you can't do that? Do you put up some sort of blocking fence so they couldn't see? I mean, you're just.
I don't think that.
No, I'm not saying, and believe me, I'm not advocating any of that. I'm just saying, like, these are all things that that I'm sure they're thinking about, but.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up an excellent point. Like we've talked about it. You talk about some of these stadiums where you are going to be able to see through the chain link fence. What's going to happen then?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I've heard some crazy stuff, man, and I'm like, that's a good idea. I mean, from a parent standpoint, I'm like, that's a good idea. It's like I could see someone doing that. I think another thing Kenneth Iden said on Twitter, on that Twitter feed that we were going back and forth on, is he said he'd pay any amount of money, and he talked about hey, I probably drop $200 on a Friday night when I go and watch my son play in another stadium. I mean, you take $200, you might multiply that by however many fans come, and AA teams travel pretty darn well for the most part. You're losing out on hotel rooms, on restaurants. You're losing out on all that, so it hurts your economy too.
Yeah, a lot of questions, and for every answer that we get, there's a new question that comes along with it.
Yeah, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, you're fine.
I just feel really bad for the parents. I listen to them, I read what they say, and I agree for the most part. And I think what's missing on the other side with people that are like, just cancel it. This is dumb. You're just missing out on empathy. Like, you just have no empathy for it. And it's, okay, but man, have some empathy for the fact that, these parents not only are losing a football season, they lost a track season, they lost whatever summer sports. If it wasn't football, for the most part, their summer sports were interrupted or not happening. They lost the last piece of winter sports, and the players lost that too. So it's just, it's that frustration that's rising up more and more and more. And at some point you worry if it's just going to boil over. I mean, what happens if parents just say, you know what, forget you, and they climb the fence? What do you do? Just say you're not playing the game? I mean,
yeah,
the way this year has gone, I don't, anything can happen. I could see people climbing fences to watch a game. I can just see it. So right or wrong, I can just see that.
Like I said, I think parents are going to get creative, and what that creativity and what form it takes, that's going to be, I think, for you and I to see as the weeks, or once we do get into the season.
And I think for us, Anthony, and for anyone else that's calling games, doing play-by-play, we have one job, and that is to try to and this is more than any other year, it feels like to me, that we have a job to try to describe that game and describe what is happening almost in more detail than we ever have before, so that parents and fans can get a picture of what they're actually, what is actually happening on the field. And I guess that was what I thought about, the last few nights is like, man, we're turning into almost like we are providing a service now that's extremely important to these players and to these families. And I'm not trying to make us sound more important than we are. I mean, we're just play-by-play guys. But if you can't go in and watch the game, and if NFHS isn't working and the only thing you can get is a radio broadcast, I mean, you're going to listen to it. So, I mean, it makes it all that more important for us to really know what we're doing and to really put in every piece of energy and all of our effort into, to describe these games and to call the action so that families and friends know what's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, definitely it's not something that I have thought about initially, but obviously as we get closer to games, definitely something more that I'm going to think about. Because like I said, as a good play-by-play person, both you and I, we talk about getting better every single year, not just sticking to, what we usually do, but always trying to find ways to get better. And yeah, this year it's going to be even more important for us to really set the scene, describe the scene. I mean, they absolutely paint the picture. Yep. Every single second we're on the air. Yeah,
exactly. So parents, I feel for you. I really do. I'm torn up about it. It's horrible. I'm hoping something changes. I just right now, everything I hear and everything that seems to be going is I don't see things changing. I don't see a loosening of a lot of this, and especially in Helena and Yellowstone County. I think they go without fans for the entire season. So
yeah, I'm hoping you're wrong here, but
I hope I'm wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm wrong, but we'll have to see, obviously, and we'll keep you up to date right here on the 2 Deep.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, why don't you close us out here? We went severely over what we try to hold to, but I think we talked about some really important stuff tonight. And I mean, the biggest things is why you like Publix chicken sandwiches. So, I mean, if you take anything away from this today, folks, know that Anthony, when he goes to Florida, sits in a bathtub in his bathing suit full of Publix chicken sandwiches. I have pictures to prove it, but I'm not going to show them.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Guys, again, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Obviously, a lot to discuss. Obviously, we're going to have another episode come out here pretty soon. Once we get an idea of what Missoula is going to do, we're going to continue to preview teams because, again, what I will say is we are not that far away. This Friday, we are 2 weeks away from getting to football in Class AA, and we're already seeing some of our other classifications do it, Class A, Class B, and so we're not that far away, and hopefully soon we're going to be talking more about these individual matchups that we're going to see on the opening week of the season. John, if people, if they, just in case, haven't heard of where they can follow us and get all our information or ask us questions, how can they do that?
Well, Anthony's cell number is, let me look this up, 911. Okay. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so 3 different ways. You can follow us at the 2 Deep, just at the 2 Deep number 2 instead of TWO. And if you want to follow Anthony or I on the Twitter, just at the Knock On Sports. It looks like Nacho on Sports, but it's the Knock On Sports, right?
Yeah.
And then if you want to follow me, I'm the original, just JT Kemper. And yeah, that's how you can follow us. If you want to follow us on Facebook, just facebook.com/the 2 Deep Montana. And that's how you'll be able to follow us on there. This will obviously be on video, and then we load it into Podbeam as well. And we're still working on getting it on iTunes and other podcasting platforms.
Yeah, and if you got questions for us, just hit us at the 2deepmt@gmail.com. Already got a couple of questions that we answered here tonight. I hope the guys, again, Dale, thanks for asking us questions. And again, make sure you send us in, and we'll try and answer as many questions as we can.
Yep. Send in questions, send in gift cards, send in money, whatever you want, however you feel. We're doing a good job. I mean, you can just send us gift cards. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. So anyway, well, Anthony, hey, it's been fun. We will catch you very soon on another episode of the 2 Deep.